channel. So this is reporting that just yesterday night, Boris Johnson survived a vote of confidence in his leadership of the Conservative Unionist Party. This was held according to the rules of the Conservative Party, not by the law of the land. So the 1922 committee is the committee for backbench Conservative MPs. A backbencher is a MP who's not a minister or a shadow minister. So discontent had been building since Christmas last, when news broke that Boris Johnson had been at lockdown parties in breach of his own rules. So he lied about this on multiple occasions. He said his minion is out to utter untruths to the public on television. So it all hit the fan. There was growing disgruntlement about other areas. There's this cost of living crisis. There's galloping inflation, much of which is not unique to the United Kingdom, as a global problem. Public services are increasingly under strain. There's no particularly good news around. People felt they've experienced no benefit from Brexit. Indeed, many people think it was a bad thing. So his inattention to detail, his lackadaisicalness, his general incompetence, his chaotic style, his cavalier attitude to everything has really hacked off a lot of people. So it was universally forecast that he would prevail in this leadership contest. And in order to have a vote of confidence, it was not a leadership contest, a vote of confidence. 15% of Conservative MPs had to send a letter to the chairman of the 1922 committee demanding a vote of confidence be held in him. So the chairman is Sir Graham Brady, formerly the youngest Conservative MP, and he was a man of unimpeachable integrity. He refused to indicate how many letters he'd received until he reached that threshold of 54. There are people say that on Monday, the 6th of June, he received actually enough letters to take him well above the 54, but he didn't announce a number, just said, we've reached that threshold. Anyway, so it was held that self-same day. The 4 days leading up to that have been an extended weekend, that 4-day weekend for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, marking Her Britannic Majesty's 70 years on the throne. So the spotlight had been off Boris for a while, but there was a bit of a Ceausescu moment when he turned up at St Paul's Cathedral and was aggressively booed by the crowd. Now these people are monarchists who tend to be conservative as well, and even his own people are against him. That's a very unhealthy sign for him. So it was widely forecasted he'd get about 65% of the vote. In fact, he scored 59% of the vote. So remember, about a third of MPs are the payroll vote. They're either cabinet ministers or junior ministers. So it was assumed that their loyalty could be depended upon. Well, that turned out to be an unsafe assumption. So of Conservative backbenchers, the majority are against him. Anyway, there doesn't seem to be any good news around. This whole thing went off a bit half-cocked. People have been plotting since January, and it was premature. It's possible that some Johnson loyalists put those letters in demanding this vote of confidence, and they might have done so with some method to their madness, realizing a vote of confidence in him was going to be held inevitably quite soon. Better to do it now than wait later, when his situation would deteriorate, perhaps very appreciably, because on the 23rd of June, 2 by-elections are going to be held in Conservative held constituencies, one in Wakefield, the other one in Tiverton and Honiton. So Wakefield was a Labour-held seat from 1932 to 2019. Under the extraordinary circumstances of that Brexit election, the Conservatives seized it. However, the Tory MP was sent to prison for sexually assaulting a 15-year-old boy. So Labour was probably going to win it back anyway, but particularly because there was such a scandal around the previous Conservative MP, Labour's got a very strong chance of retaking that seat. Now, Tiverton and Honiton is a safe Conservative seat. The MP there, Neil Parish, he stood down because he acknowledged that he'd watched pornography in the House of Commons chamber. So the Conservatives are more likely to hang on to that one. But anyway, if they lost Wakefield, that would obviously undermine Johnson's leadership. But if the Conservatives lost Tiverton and Honiton as well, that would be a death knell for his leadership, seen as a bit of a, well, more than a bellwether, that one, because the Conservatives should hold that under almost any circumstances. Hello. Yes. So perhaps it was people who actually wanted to keep Johnson who decided, let's hold this now because he stands a better chance of surviving than if we hold it to leave to the end of the month. I thought this vote of confidence would be held, but not till July. But anyway, I was mistaken. Anyway, so It's bad news for Johnson. So only five votes of confidence have been held in Conservative leaders in history. Maggie Thatcher in 1990 held one, and in those days, the plotters had to put forward a challenger. If you're not going to have him, you'll have this person. Okay, and back then it was Michael Heseltine, and so Thatcher got 55% of the vote, but nevertheless she was persuaded it was in the best interest of the party. She stepped down as leader and therefore prime minister, and the Conservative Party would stand a better chance of winning the forthcoming general election if she was no longer the leader. And so she fell on her sword for the good of the party, for the good of the United Kingdom. But Johnson has no such conscience. He's absolutely bereft of any other considerations. He's entirely egotistical, self-interested, self-obsessed, and narcissistic. So he would quite happily bring the whole Tory party down with him. At the moment, the Conservatives are 20% behind Labour in the opinion polls. On the 5th of May, at the local elections, the Tory party is only 6% behind. So it's sunk 14 percentage points in just a month. So that's an alarming rate of decline. This is beyond the ordinary mid-term blues. You'd expect a governing party to be 5%, 10% behind this time, but not 20%. And that's going to be difficult to turn around. Admittedly, the next general election doesn't have to be for 2.5 years, and the horizon is full of storm clouds. There's really no rosy news coming up for the Tory party. So that's why the Conservative Parliamentary Party was getting jittery, is close to panic stations. Well, in June 1995, Prime Minister John Major, he resigned as leader of the Tory party to trigger a vote of confidence. It was back me or sack me, to stop all this muttering in the ranks and sometimes open attacks on his leadership. And he won by 66%, actually the highest percentage any Conservative leaders got in such a vote of confidence, partly because John Redwood was seen as a swivel-eyed loony, was his challenger. But under the current circumstances, since 1997, when William Hague wrote the rules when he was party leader, no, you don't have to have a challenger. And there were several very capable people who could have taken over from Boris Johnson if he had been defenestrated. Remember, Ian Duncan Smith in October 2003, he faced a leadership vote and he lost. He only got something like 34% of the vote. Boris Johnson had written in his newspaper column that he would get down into a ditch to defend Ian Duncan Smith, and the very next day knifed him in the vote. So Duncan Smith was the only Tory leader to actually lose such a vote of confidence. And then the next one was obviously Theresa May. She won 65% of the vote when she won this vote of confidence, but nevertheless, her leadership was undermined and she resigned several months later. So put it this way, no Conservative leader who's faced a vote of confidence has survived more than 2 years after as leader, because obviously John Major, he went down to a very heavy defeat in the election in May 1997. So Bojo, on the face of it, he's got under 2 years left to go. He would like this whole issue to go away, like the lockdown party thing to go away, but that's not going to happen. There's a House of Commons Standards and Privileges Committee investigation into that. There'll be more damning revelations. This story is going to run and run and run. Now, admittedly, a lot of the public, even those who are against him for this, are getting bored of the story. They'd like to move on. So Johnson's strategy is to say, this has all been dealt with, it's out of the way, let's stop this Westminster Village bickering and gossip and get down to the real business of governing things. It's what ordinary people out there in the country want us to improve public services and to feel the benefit of Brexit, bring back avoirdupois weights and stuff like that. But under Conservative Party rules, no new vote of confidence can be held for a 12-month. Well, even if we have to wait 12 months, I don't see Boris Johnson's position. A Mayor rating, in fact, is going to disimprove, perhaps even radically. So anyway, there was a bit of a Ukraine bounce. He was seen as being robust and gallant in backing the Ukrainians to the hilt, did more than anyone besides the United States to help the Ukrainians fight for their freedom against this illegal Russian invasion with numerous barbarities. But Ukraine is losing salience as an issue. It's been going on for almost 3 months. It's almost the new normal. Anyway, so the Conservatives are looking to lose the next general election, and if Boris is still there, it may be a defeat on the scale of 1997. Sort of case of no change, no chance. Even if the Conservatives change to their best leader, whoever the best leader is in the party ranks, might still lose that 2024 election, but perhaps not by quite so much. So this was the worst possible outcome for the Conservative Party. It's left Johnson wounded but not dead as a leader. He's going to limp on, his authority is leeching away, the public is turning against him. It's difficult to see how he can really burnish his image at this late stage. Thanks for watching.